brutal to watch.
Speedster.
It doesn't matter.
Oh,
What is up? Welcome to the Week 3 Rad Avenger League preview. What a wonderful day we have here. It is Thursday, September 21st, also known as my birthday. So 28 years ago today, there was a little baby boy born with a little tiny pink penis that grew into the adult man you see before you with the little tiny pink penis. So thank you for all the wishes, for those of you who wished me happy birthday, and for those who didn't. I wrote it down. But yeah, an incredible day. Blink-182 released a new song today. It's very good, made me cry. And more importantly, we have NFL football on today, and the Fantasy Week 3 starts tonight. So let's get right into the business after I didn't get right into the business. Last week's wheel winner, Trevor, congratulations, started Keenan Allen, who scored some amount of points that I didn't write down. It's in here somewhere. It was It was 27.1 points. So congratulations to Trevor for having the highest started position. He also had, interestingly enough, the person who would have won this week, as far as on roster goes, and Brian Robinson, 27.9. So either way, congratulations, $10 to you. Let's go ahead and jump over to the wheel and see what today or this week's competition is going to be. Ooh, just snuck in there. Highest margin of victory. So blowouts. Get your blowouts in. Set your lineups, blow out your opponent, get in their heads, kill them. Anyway, that should be an interesting one to keep track of. So highest margin of victory for the week. Get out there. Get your research done, set your lineups. Let's get into the big stories of this week. Obviously, the biggest story out there is Nick Chubb. Devastating injury on Monday night. Gonna miss the season. I don't think they've confirmed what's going on, but he's done for the season. And the other story I have written down is, well, I did a lot of these notes yesterday, so I didn't have the Bears shit show that was yesterday written down as some of the biggest stories, but obviously their defensive coordinator resigned, and then there was a report that he was having his house raided by the FBI, and that also Hollis Hall was being raided by the FBI, and then it turns out none of that was true, and like maybe his house still was, but definitely Hollis Hall wasn't, and I don't even really know. Either way, he stepped down and may or may not be being investigated by the FBI. Either way, he stunk, so he probably resigned because of that. But I also wrote down the Bengals shit show was my second big story. Joe Burrow's calf, we don't know what's happening with it. Even if he is going to play Monday night, he's struggled through the first couple of weeks, assuming because of the calf injury. So can they turn around? Is he even going to play? Is their season dead? I tend to think so. Being in the AFC, and specifically in the AFC North, there wasn't really a lot of room for error to begin with, and now you're starting 0-2 and maybe don't have your quarterback for a couple of games. Getting into the rankings here, and I'll go ahead and put those on the screen because there was gigantic movement this week. So we have Wade at 2-0 in first place. We have Tim at 0-2 in 10th place, and then we essentially have an 8-way tie at 1-1. I dropped all the way down to 9th, being that my only win was Tim and was against nobody in this little cluster. So head-to-head strikes again. Fucking Cameron jumps all the way up to second. I assume he beat two people in this big cluster. Raleigh jumps all the way to third. Charlie is the only one who didn't move and is in fourth place, and somehow that is the only thing that makes sense this week, that he just stayed where he was, because that's what he does. He never drops, he never jumps. Ashley jumping up 5 spots into 5th place. Andrew dropping to 6th. Trevor moving up a spot into 7th. John in 8th, and then like I said, myself in 9th, and Tim in 10th. So your second and third highest scores in the league, 9th and 10th place. Very interesting. So let's just get into the matchups. Oh, actually, no, we're not going to get into the matchups yet because waivers were crazy this week too. We talked about the Nick Chubb injury. Tim picked up Jerome Ford, who was presumed to take over the starting role. Was the second string in Cleveland. And Tim went ahead and snagged him up. And then a day later, actually the day of, Tim got him in the morning on the waivers, and later that afternoon, Kareem Hunt coming back to Cleveland. So Charlie ended up snagging Kareem Hunt. We'll see how that works out for both the Browns and Charlie specifically. And then, not that I think it's going to matter much, but John has 4 quarterbacks on his roster. He picked up Jordan Love and Kirk Cousins, which is interesting because he already had Justin Fields. So if you want to go ahead and put Jared Goff on the roster too, and just have the AFC North gauntlet of quarterbacks, that would be very, very funny to me. So tell you what, I'll grab Jared Goff from whoever, wherever he is, and I'll trade you Anthony Richardson for him. Anyway, so getting into the matchups now. I started with Wade because he is in first place and he's dominating. So Wade is taking on John this week. Let me go ahead and pull the game center up on what I'm doing. Fucking around, didn't prep. It's been a hectic morning. I'm trying to record, edit, and get this out hopefully before noon. Doubt that'll happen. We'll see how my shit internet holds up. But Wade versus John. I'm blowing up Discord again. Hold on. Let me go and do not disturb. I can't shut the hell up for 30 minutes while I'm recording. All right, that's actually funny. I'm glad we did that. It's the Sam Laporta shirt for anybody that's wondering what time of day it is. Probably just sent in the Sam Laporta rookie design. Anyway, Wade versus John. For John, I have written down here, did he finally find the right lineup, or can he find the right lineup? Last week, he had an insane amount of points sitting on his bench while he went and scored 72. Let's see, a full box score. Yeah, John had 25 from Kyron Williams, 15 from Garrett Wilson, 17 from Anthony Richardson, who I don't even know if he's playing this week, but 13 from Terry McLaurin, while his actual starters scored 4.5, 9.14, 8.8, 5.2, and 5.9. So a lot of gaps there from the skill positions that could have been made up by his lineup, and would have very easily had him sitting at 2-0. So can he find that right combination? I mean, this week he's got Jahmyr Gibbs, who will take over a much bigger role with the absence of David Montgomery. He's finally trusting Kyron Williams to get in the starting lineup, and now that Cam Akers is fully out of the way, should be getting a majority of the work there. John does have the fewest points in the league through 2 weeks. But like I said, that bench could have made up a lot of that gap. I also have pointed out here that John may have the best dynasty roster of all time. Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, all in their first or second year. Dallas Goedert is old, but tight end's replaceable. Gabe Davis is, whatever. But then he's got Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson. Dude, like, if we were doing dynasty, this would be insane. So jumping over to Wade and kind of going over his lineup, literally all I wrote down was wagon. We are getting into wagon train territory. I wouldn't put the classification on him yet, but the conversation is being had, will Wade lose a game this season? And to point out that this conversation is happening while Austin Eckler is sitting on his bench. Austin Eckler still dealing with, I think, what was it, a hamstring, ankle? That'll probably keep him out another couple of weeks, and it doesn't really matter. James Cook looks like he's finally taken over. Interesting stat, James Cook is the RB12 right now and has yet to score a touchdown. So James Cook just doing gross things, just purely on yardage and work share. Ramondre had a big game this week. Devontae Adams might be the trade steal of the year. Whoever's throwing to the rock, he's still very, very good. 17 points last week, 84 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith looks incredible, and Jalen Hurts doesn't hate him, unlike AJ Brown. And then Puka Nacua, there's another waiver pickup. I had Slice as a one that I think will be season changing. but this is number one by far. I mean, Puka Nacua, we'll see what happens when Cooper Kupp comes back, if Cooper Kupp comes back, to see if he keeps the same volume. I doubt it, but even if he's not, I mean, you know, if you cut his volume in half, you're still getting 8-9 targets a game at this point. Just a disgusting roster. Which leads me into the prediction for this week, and I don't think anybody's shocked that I'm picking Wade to win this one. And I really don't see, outside of maybe the Eagles bye week where he's missing Jalen and Devontae, I really don't see a week where I'm not picking Wade to win. Especially when Austin Eckler comes back. I mean, that's just, you still got Jordan Addison sitting on the bench. I mean, there's so much depth, so many options. He may not even miss Devontae Smith. He will miss Jalen Hurts. That's hard to replace. But this roster is insane. So I'm picking Wade to win. And an early favorite for, sorry, John, an early favorite for highest margin of victory here. So put Wade on Will Watch. Jumping into the second matchup, we got Charlie versus Cameron, which is right here. For Charlie, I mean, your team was already not looking great. You know, you're 1-1. You snuck out a week in the first week and actually had a pretty solid week last week. You know, just couldn't really put it together at the end, and part of that had to do with Chubb going down very, very early in that game. And I don't really know where you go from here, Charlie. Bijan's incredible. He's amazing. He's living up to the hype. He's everything we thought he would be. So you have that going for you, and he gets a very favorable matchup this week against the Lions. Gus Edwards should take over some more snap share. Justice Hill is reportedly hurt. I don't know how serious it is, but I think they said he's going to miss this week. And obviously J.K. Dobbins is already down, so Gus Edwards should see some heavy volume, but he has injury problems of his own. We'll see how he makes it through the Indianapolis game. And then, yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, where you had a great game out of George Pickens, you had a great game out of Deebo Samuel. And those are two guys that can do it. They don't do it consistently. Deebo, there's so many weapons there with McCaffrey and Ayuk and Kittle, and you know, there's a lot of spread out, and Deebo just kind of has these games, you know, once or twice a year where he just gets the rock and goes crazy, and then he just, you know, he's kind of a 60 to 70 yard guy. George Pickens, you know, it's how much do you trust Kenny Pickett? He looks fine. He obviously had that big touchdown, but didn't really, from what I saw, didn't really do anything to impress outside of that massive touchdown, which was awesome. I'll give credit there. If you can just do that, you know, why not? So Charlie is kind of backed into a corner, and he doesn't really have the bench depth to get out of it. DeAndre Hopkins is good, but he's stuck in Tennessee, and I honestly haven't heard his name. Yeah, 65 yards, 40 yards. I mean, as long as Ryan Tannehill's throwing the ball, you know, I don't really know what you do there. Same with OBJ. He's just old. Can't really do it anymore. The saving grace here would be if Kareem Hunt can step in and take over that Nick Chubb role, because the thing, Charlie, that was keeping you afloat was Nick Chubb and Bijan were gonna put up 15 plus a game, and you just needed 7 or 8 from the other guys. You need Kareem Hunt to step in and do that again for you. Cameron, I have put down here, I think this is the Mahomes get right game. I think this is the game where we go, oh shit, yeah, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are still very, very good. They struggled last week against the Jags. Obviously, they lost week 1 against the Lions and looked really bad with Kelce out. This week they get the Bears. Can you name a better get right game than the Chicago Bears at home in Kansas City in Arrowhead? Yeah, he's probably going to put up 25 points. I think Travis Kelce is probably going to have 3 touchdowns. I feel one of those coming. So very, very scary there for Mahomes. And then I have here, I think Mixon has a chance to eat without Joe Burrow possibly playing, or even if he does play, Joe Burrow doesn't look sharp. He doesn't look in midseason form, and his calf's bad. So I think Joe Mixon starts to eat here in the next couple of weeks. They get LA, who is a decent, it's not a bad defense, just a little bit of an older defense. And then they get Tennessee, who's got a solid run defense. Then Arizona, Seattle, before the bye week. I think Joe Mixon is about to go on a little run here, especially if they decide to rest up Joe Burrow and try to get him back for the end of the season. And I have Justin Jefferson on a 40 burger watch. Justin Jefferson, the Vikings are playing the Chargers in what could be a 45 to 44 game. should be fucking awesome. It's so good that even though, well, I'll get to this in a little bit. You'll hear a take on my game. But yeah, I'm officially putting Justin Jefferson on 40 burger watch. It could get ugly really fast. Yeah, so I mean, as far as picking a winner here, I've talked about the gaps in Charlie's lineup, and Cameron is just getting some incredible matchups this week. Mahomes and the Bears, and Jefferson against the Chargers being the big two. Brandon Cooks even against the Cardinals. Miles Sanders against Seattle. Drake London against the Lions, who give up yards to the air. Excuse me. I think that's just too much for Charlie to overcome here. And honestly, if it goes exactly the way I'm thinking about, I can also put Cameron on Will Watch. I really could. It kind of sounds like I'm about to just put everybody on Will Watch for highest margin of victory. I'm not. I'm looking at the last 3 matchups, and I'm absolutely putting no one else on Will Watch. Cameron and Wade would be my 2 highest odds to take home the highest margin of victory trophy. So speaking into those next games, Ashley versus Andrew. Ashley had a phenomenal week last week. And really, if she had a serviceable quarterback, how much would Deshaun Watson end up with? 11.6. So it really shouldn't have even been as close as it was. Luckily, she made that change at quarterback. She has Dak Prescott going in against a piss poor Cardinals defense who just gave up 31 to Daniel Jones, the same Daniel Jones who scored 0 points against the Cowboys in week 1. The only thing I worry about here with putting in Dak Prescott and taking out the Sex Predator is that the Cowboys may not pass after the first quarter. Something I'm going to talk about later with me having CeeDee Lamb. I mean, the Cowboys didn't need to throw in week 1 against the Giants. I don't think they're going to really be doing it here. So I don't know how much upside Dak Prescott has, but still, you got 11 last week out of Deshaun. If you can get 15 to 16 and score around the same, score around where you were, you put up a good week again. I also have, is this the Najee get right game? Najee's playing the Raiders. Not a great rush defense. The only thing that worries me here is that this is also the game where Jaylen Warren could really get going, and could really take over that lead back role if Najee goes in and just doesn't get it done. And then I have here Chris Godwin. The Bucs looked really fucking good last week, but they were playing the Bears. And week 1, they were playing the Vikings. They played 2 really bad defenses. And they capitalized on it. But even in those games, Chris Godwin 51-58 for 7.6 and 8.3 points. That to me is going to be everything. Can Baker Mayfield recreate it against a good Philadelphia defense? And then on the flip side, I didn't even write this down, but I'm just looking at it here. Can Kyle Pitts finally figure it the fuck out against the Lions? The Lions are terrible guarding tight ends. If Kyle Pitts doesn't do it this week, he should be cut from every roster. It's over. He's got to score at least 10 for Kyle Pitts to stay on any roster, in my opinion. Anyway. Oh, and Christian Watson might be back. That's cool. That's fun. Didn't even notice that. Going over to Andrew, I talked about Travis Kelce. I think this is a big Travis Kelce game. I wouldn't be shocked if this game was like 21-3 at halftime and all 3 touchdowns for Travis Kelce, and then he just doesn't catch a pass in the second half because why would he go in and play and risk anything? I wouldn't be shocked to see like a 40-yard, 3-touchdown performance from Travis Kelce. Tony Pollard looks absolutely incredible. He's the RB4 so far on the season. Had 2 touchdowns in week 1. Has had 70 rushing yards in each of his 2 weeks. Last week, also had 37 yards through the air, 7 receptions. As Dak just, he can conduct the ball. And I think there's going to be a heavy dose of him against Arizona, as I talked about when we talked about Dak Prescott. And that's kind of the matchup nightmare matchup you dread to see. Is Andrew going to start Joe Burrow? I'm asking legitimately, like, even if Joe Burrow plays, start him. You know, if he's gonna be a game time decision on that ankle, we've seen him in the first 2 weeks. You know, what would it take for you to bench Joe Burrow? Me personally, I'd be there already. But you know, that's I really don't know. And that's Andrew's big question mark at this point. You know, he lost last week because Joe Burrow didn't do anything. Did he lose last week? He lost last week. Am I just wrong? I might just be wrong. Did he lose week 1? No, he got his ass kicked by Trevor. Okay. Making sure I wasn't going crazy. And that was largely to do with Joe Burrow and, you know, Travis Kelce kind of sneaking back in. Like, that's who needs to carry him. Tony Pollard's doing his job. Calvin Ridley kind of took a step back last week after going off in week 1. I see him having a bounce back against Houston. Chris Olave is going to do what Chris Olave does, which is get 10 to 17 points, and you know, maybe he'll get a quarterback that can air it out and really break it to him. As far as a winner here, I've gone with Andrew. I do, once again, I think Travis Kelce has a 20+ point game. Tony Pollard's going to be Tony Pollard. The only real question mark, like I said, is Joe Burrow. So I do think Andrew gets enough out of some key positions to take home the V here. Now I go to what I have dubbed the game of the week this week, and that's week with 2 E's. So, you know, no disrespect there, and that is Tim versus Raleigh. A great A shit talking matchup, both very active. So we should see a lot of back and forth there. But B, 2 teams that have last week were closer than a lot of people gave them credit for. You know, I think Raleigh's still kind of riding a little bit under the radar. Obviously had a massive week last week, kicked my ass. But I don't think he's really getting the team respect that maybe he deserves. And I really think we'll find out this week. I think if Raleigh puts together another big performance this week, we should start putting him in the upper echelon of teams with Tim, Wade, and you know, whoever else you might want to throw in there. So for Tim, I have James Conner against the Cowboys is a nightmare matchup. You know, this might be where you see him taking a risk on a Jerome Ford or a Khalil Herbert. I mean, James Conner, the Cowboys just bottled up Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall, Michael Carter, and kind of kept Saquon. Actually, I think they've really killed Saquon. And you know, those are teams with kind of other weapons. Arizona really doesn't have that. You know, Hollywood's whatever. The Cardinals are going to get hyped because they killed a bad Giants team in the first half. They're still terrible, and I think the Cowboys are just going to eat their fucking lunch. And then I talked about Chris Godwin and the Bucks, and can they repeat that performance? Almost more important for Tim, that conversation is because Mike Evans had such a big game last week. And how much do you trust him? Has had a touchdown in each of the first 2 weeks. Once again, against just terrible defenses. But they finally play a top tier defense on Monday night. Is Baker Mayfield going to have time to throw? Is he going to be able to throw with you know, dudes coming in his face? I really don't see Mike Evans repeating that type of performance. But I do see Javonte Williams running all over the Dolphins. Ramondre Stevenson had a good week last week against him. Austin Eckler obviously went insane in week 1. I think Javonte, this is kind of where he establishes himself. And really, if the Broncos are going to show any fight at all this season, they should run the ball all over the Dolphins. It's kind of my last heave for them, especially with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both being limited in practice this week. If they struggle to do anything, the Broncos, then it's already over, but it's very over. And talking about Raleigh, I talked about his roster here. And I'm having trouble deciding whether his running backs are good or just getting some favorable matchups. Kenneth Walker ate up the Lions last week. 2 touchdowns, 17.9 points. He gets a very similar matchup here against the Panthers, where he should be able to just run all day, all night, as much as he wants. Raheem Mostert shredded the Patriots on Sunday night last week. 2 touchdowns, 121 yards, caught a ball for 6 yards. Can he repeat that against the Denver Broncos? Going back, the Broncos' sole pride is defense, and if they can't stop Raheem Mostert, you know, it's one thing if Tyreek Hill goes for 40 against you. It's another thing if Raheem Mostert, you know, runs the ball down your throat. That's just embarrassing. This is and Raleigh has the other pickup that I think will be maybe season defining for him, if not the league. And that's Hunter Henry. He completely flew under my radar. And once I saw it in week 1, I felt maybe the stupidest I've ever felt. I love TJ Hawkinson. I like having a bona fide tight end. I don't love TJ Hawkinson. I don't know why I said that, but I do like having a good tight end. But 2 years ago, when Mac Jones had a competent coordinator, Hunter Henry was a top 10, top 5 tight end option. Obviously last year the Patriots didn't do anything because they had a defensive coordinator calling plays. This year with Bill O'Brien, now that they're running a competent offense, I think Hunter Henry is going to end up being a top 5, if not top 3 tight end. Mac Jones seems to love him. He's already caught 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns on 50 yards. He's gotten each of his first 2 games. And that's the most perfect tight end stat line ever. 14.1, 14.2 points. It's crazy how consistent he is. And I think he's going to do it all year. I think that's going to be the tight end steal of the season. Puka Nacua is going to be the best waiver pickup of the season, but that one should be talked about more. And all of this to say that I do think Tim finally gets his first win here. I think he gets on the board. I don't love the Mike Evans play. I do think Sam Laporta has a pretty good day. But he's got other options to get in there. Algier, Ford, Kirk. I could just be wrong about Mike Evans. Mike Evans could just be fully still good. So I do think Tim finally picks up the win here, and I think Raleigh does fall back down to earth a little bit, mostly on the backs of T. Higgins, having no Joe Burrow. Yeah, that's where I'm at with the whole thing. So winner Tim in the what I'm deeming is the game of the week, and probably the least likely to have the furthest margin of victory, or highest margin of victory. Which brings us to our last matchup, which is myself against Trevor. Projected the closest game of the week. Trevor projected to win by about 0.35 points. 0.35. 115.16 to 115.51. Having said that, Trevor has I don't think he's broken 100 points yet this year. He had 99 last week and 83 the week before. So he kind of has a roster. It honestly, it's scarily similar to what happened to him last season. Where I think he's got a roster that's built to have a breakout. It's just, when is it going to happen? And judging by some matchups here, I think it could happen this week. Which does kind of scare me. And I'll start with his notes since I'm already talking about his team. Keenan Allen obviously won the highest scoring starter last week. 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, 27.1 points. I think Keenan Allen is obviously the number 1 option in LA, which is it's so weird to say that. He's the number 1 option for the Chargers, especially if Austin Eckler is going to be out for an extended period of time. Normally Austin Eckler is just eating receptions over there, and it kind of limits it for everyone else. So Keenan Allen should have a couple breakout games. That's a breakout. He's been a top 10 wide receiver for like 15 years. Should have a couple like marquee games while Eckler's out. This is talking about get right games earlier. This is kind of it for Josh Jacobs as well. Sunday Night Football prime time against the Steelers. Decent matchup. The Steelers just got ran all over by first Nick Chubb and then Jerome Ford. So I think Josh Jacobs has a chance to put together a pretty special performance in prime time. And you know, we talked about T. Higgins without Joe Burrow. There's no bigger loser in the Joe Burrow injury than Jamar Chase. The number 2 overall pick has been held to 39 and 31 yards. It's just, yeah, I mean, if Joe Burrow can't throw the ball, I don't really know what he does. So that's the big key. And I talked about the matchups for Trevor's breakout. The Jags playing Houston is very scary. Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, and Travis Etienne. Honestly, Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram don't even really scare me against the Texans, because I do have a decent, okay secondary. It's Travis Etienne. He should run all over them. Should get a ton of carries. They should be winning a lot. I hopefully they just turn to what's his dick, Tank Bigsby very early on, let him ice the game away. Going over to my team, I have one of the biggest jumbled messes of the wide receiver room I've ever seen. Obviously CeeDee Lamb every week, bona fide starter, you know, top pick. Brandon Ayuk most week is going to be a starter, but now he's dealing with a shoulder injury, and the fucking 49ers won't release if he's going to play tonight or not. So fucking we'll see. And even if he is healthy, they should kill the Giants. So I don't know if I'm going to start him either way. Michael Pittman against the Ravens, Mike Williams against the Vikings should be a shootout. I really don't want to put in Mike Williams, because if Keenan Allen has a big day, then that just fucks me over twice. But also it's Mike Williams against the Vikings. Like, I kind of have to. Nico Collins has just dominated this year. 80 yards in his first game, 146 and a touchdown last week against the Colts. He gets a favorable matchup against Jacksonville. So like, I want him in my flag. Yeah, I don't know what to do. If you know what to do, please message me and tell me what to do with those 4 wide receivers. Thank you. And last, well, not last, actually, I've got 2 more things to talk about. We talk about Brandon Ayuk's shoulder injury. Aaron Jones is still dealing with his hamstring, and he didn't practice Wednesday, so he's likely out, which means I'm going to have to rely on Breece Hall again. Now against New England, you know, an easier matchup. Raheem Mostert just ran the fuck all over him last week. But I mean, the Patriots are still no slouch on defense, and the Dolphins are obviously have a much better passing attack to really open things up for their running backs. So I don't, you know, we'll see. But it's not as though I'm gonna have a choice. If Aaron Jones is healthy, he's starting. If he's not, Breece is starting. You know, that's pretty much it. Christian McCaffrey scares the living shit out of me. He's so much fun to watch, and it's so much fun to have him. He was on the field for 100% of snaps on Sunday, which is fun, and also, once again, the most terrifying thing I could ever ask for. As far as predicting a winner here, I just said me, I guess. Honestly, it's a coin flip. I could see it going a ton of different ways. I do think it's going to be a very, very good game. I'm just leaning towards myself because it's me. Honestly, if I was looking at this through some non-biased lenses, I can make a case for Trevor. The Houston matchup for Jacksonville being the biggest one. But you got to believe in yourself a little bit, right? And it's my birthday, so I get to pick myself if I want to. Anyway, that's all of our matchups this week. So don't forget, the will this week will be decided by the highest margin of victory. If you know who to start in my wide receiver slots, please hit me up. Anyway, let's have a great week. Good luck, everyone.